IT industry works, how an IT company works, and what is the process they follow inside an IT company?
Not exactly. Like I'm having the idea, but not in professional manner. Just I have idea.
Okay. So suppose in case if you join a company, right? Okay, let's say you
Oh,
join TCS, okay, and you're put
okay,
in a healthcare project, okay, and
okay.
they hire you as a business analyst. Like, what do you think your role and responsibility will be?
Actually, as per me, what I'm thinking, they will be giving one project.
Mm-hmm.
After giving the project, they will tell us to meet the client through call or to direct. So to gather the requirements regarding the project, what they
Okay.
require. So after the requirement gathering, we need to discuss with the team, like a developer and tester. We need to write the user stories. If we are into agile,
Mm-hmm.
if we are following the agile methodology, we need
Mm-hmm.
to write the user stories. And if it is in waterfall model, we need to write the use cases.
Okay, that's good. So when you
Yes.
since you know about agile and all, right? Do you know what is sprint and how many week sprints are available? Like, do you have any idea of what is called sprint?
Uh, yes, I have seen the YouTube videos and sprint in in Agile, they will be following the project, they'll be showing the every module in every sprint, taking certain user stories in one sprint.
Okay.
Yes, like sprint, it will be one sprint, the max, it will be like 4 weeks
Okay,
sprint. The
4 week
duration
sprint.
will be,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yes, yes,
Okay.
that's I'm having idea.
Idea.
Some,
Okay. So like let's say that before we start a sprint, you created all the user stories and now you're ready and that is a 4 week sprint coming up. And so what will happen? Like so the you're giving the user stories to your developers and testers and you are also taking some user stories, right? Because you have to do testing and coordination with your business owners. So how will you make sure that the developer and tester they are doing their work and that project right within that is completed or whatever user stories they are taking within that particular sprint is completed, like how do you check that?
uh, like uh, we'll be having the sprint planning meeting,
Mm-hmm.
sprint review meeting,
Okay.
not the sprint planning. It will be sprint review meeting.
Okay.
What they have done in the yesterday's work, they'll be discussing in the daily scrum call. We'll be having daily stand-up meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be discussing what the developer has taken, how many user stories have been completed by them.
Right, so every day status call you will check the status of the user stories, right?
Yes.
Okay, what's the difference between sprint planning and sprint retrospective?
Sprint planning is when the project has been going to start, we'll be having the sprint planning developer, tester, and business analyst, product owner, and the scrum masters. At the start of the sprint, they will be discussing what will be taking the prioritized requirements. That which requirements will be taken first. What is the sprint plan?
Okay, and then what is sprint retrospective?
Sprint. Retrospective means after the completion of the sprint,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be having the meeting. Retrospective means what we have done in the sprint, any drawbacks. If we are in next sprint, what we need to take the steps to improve the next sprint.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah, right. So sprint
Oh,
planning is like before we start the sprint, we are doing prioritization and we are making sure like which stories needs to be picked up for the next sprint, right? So, but how do you
yes.
prioritize? What are the criteria to prioritize? Do you know that?
Uh, Criteria to prioritize the
So, for
requirement.
example, like your team has like 10 projects, okay? So now 10
Okay,
projects, we have only like limited developers and testers, okay? So
okay,
everybody wants their works to be done, but we have only like, let's assume we have only like 4 week sprint, and the next sprint is starting like next Monday. And today we are having
okay,
the sprint planning call, right? And so
okay.
we are going to prioritize, like we have all the user stories in the backlog, everything is fine, but we have only limited number of developers and testers and business analysts. So like which stories we need to pick? There are like multiple projects.
Mm.
Do you
Uh,
know the like how to prioritize? How what are the criteria for prioritization?
Criteria of prioritization, like we need to check like what is the important what is the first importance, means prioritized requirement. We need
Right.
to pick up that one. We need to discuss with the developers and
Mm-hmm.
with the scrum master and the product owner.
Mm-hmm.
Will be having like a discussion and we need to prioritize.
Right. So if there are like 20 stories in the backlog, and then we have to like prioritize which first 10 stories needs to be made essential and which needs to be picked. So the criteria will be mostly upon which project the development has to start first, because your team may be having like you may be other teams may be having dependency on your team, right? So because many projects like multiple teams, multiple applications and systems will be integrated. So for example, your team development should be completed first, only then the other team, IT team, can start their work. So suppose we have a project like that, you have to make sure you complete your developer complete their side of development and make sure that is ready so that the other team can coordinate and do their integration testing and everything. So dependency, whether we other teams are dependent on us, and like whether this particular user story needs to be essential in the sense like must we have to do it in next sprint, the business wants it in the next sprint, they have a solid like deadline and target date. So and also like if there are 10 projects, like some business owners wants it to be like within a particular date, okay? And also if it is going to be something like compliance related, for example, government has told us like this particular project has to go within a certain date, otherwise like our company will get fined. So if we are out of compliance, we are going to get fined. So anything related
Okay,
to government projects, anything related to compliance will always be first.
okay, yeah,
Okay, that will be first, that will be made essential. And then like it comes upon comes like anything, if other teams have dependency on us, then those stories will be like essential, and we have to like make sure those user stories are picked up in next sprint.
okay,
Okay, so I think
okay.
you have idea of agile and how a team works and all, but let's get into like actual projects. So if you want to tell me like an end-to-end scenario or end-to-end project or on an automation application, like can you explain a project?
Mm, no, actually, I didn't work on the project, so I'm not having idea on the project.
Okay, so
So one project means I had checked through like through ChatGPT. So
mhm,
I have complete experience into US healthcare.
hmm.
So I have taken the mostly into US healthcare only because if I'm trying job outside, if any company, they'll be definitely giving me option for US healthcare only because I'm having experience into US healthcare only.
So
So
you are
I'm
saying insurance domain, so you have like
yes,
how, okay, now can you tell me the difference between Medicare and Medicaid?
yes, like Medicare, it is like the eligibility, like it is a central government one, and it has given to the people who are age more than 65 and who are having the dialysis, ESRD, and one more thing is ESRD and more than and one is disability. And about the Medicaid, it is given to the people who are below the poverty line.
Okay, so
It is a state government.
Okay,
Yes.
what is ICD-10 CM and CPT? Do you know that?
ICD-10, it is a diagnosis, like international classification of diseases, ICD-10 and CPT.
Okay, what is ICD-10 used for?
ICD-10, ICD-10 means I didn't get,
It's a code, right? It's a code. Okay, ICD-10 CM is nothing but it's like list of diagnosis code. So what for what we are using that code? CPT codes and ICD-10 CM codes. Do you know why are we using those type of codes in on the claims?
which one? ICD-10.
Yeah,
ICD-10 will be not
you said
getting
you had
exact.
an experience in US healthcare and insurance, right? So when we are processing a claim, does US healthcare, the insurance accept the diagnosis as it is, or we have to add a code on it?
Actually, like ICD-10, like insurance and doctor and patients can understand that what is being treated in the what is being treated
Okay,
by looking at the ICD-10.
okay.
It
When
will
you
be
are
like
some
alphanumeric.
right, so when you are submitting a claim to the insurance, right? So what are the
Okay.
mandatory checks that insurance does? What are the mandatory fields that we have to fill that is compulsory? Without that, no, the
Uh,
insurance is not going to process. Do you know?
we'll be checking the eligibility of the patient and age, date of birth, name,
Mm,
about the demographic, complete
okay.
demography of the patient.
Mm-hmm. And then,
Yes, demographic information and whether the particular services are covered or not.
okay, so you'll be like whether they are whether that member is still eligible for this benefits. Okay, you will check that. Okay.
Yes, in network, where it is for in network or out of network, we'll be checking that.
What is the difference between
Uh,
in network and out of network?
in network, it is network of the providers, like within the geographical area of the patient's health insurance.
Okay.
And
And
out of network, it is out of like a geographical area, or patient's insurance network is it is called as out of network.
okay, suppose a patient is going for an out of network provider, right? What is the difference that
Okay.
how the claims are processed? Like, what's the difference?
They will be getting the less benefits.
Okay. So, do you know what is like the benefit for the member if they're going through in network instead of out of network?
I didn't get it. Can you repeat once again?
So, if the member is going for in network provider,
In
like
network.
what are the
Okay.
benefits that that member is going to get instead of going for out of network? Why the member has to choose an in network provider?
Uh, why the member has been they will be getting 100% payable from the insurance.
Okay. So coverage is more, right? So if you're going through
Yes,
in
coverage is
network,
more.
right, like insurance, they're going to cover most of the services, and
Yes,
only like from out of pocket is going to be very less. Okay. Do you know what is EOB?
EOB, explanation of benefits.
Yeah. Do you know what is that?
Yes, I know, but it's I have recollecting from the basics.
Okay. So do you know what
Yes,
like
yes.
EOB, like how, what is EOB? How do a member get a EOB? Do you know that?
Like after the payment of the services, the patient will be getting the explanation of benefits, whatever the company has paid to him, that
Mm,
complete
mm.
picture.
Right. So once the claim is being processed,
Yes,
the member will be getting a document saying explanation of benefits, like how much coverage has happened and what is out of pocket and how much the member is a patient's responsibility. Okay. So that document
yes.
is called as EOB, explanation of
Mm,
benefits. Right. So do you know like how um, a member can appeal a document, I mean, appeal a claim?
Like appeal side, I'm not having idea,
Mhm.
but I need to go through that one.
Okay, so if suppose a member
Can you
or
please repeat the question so that I can note the questions?
yeah, so question is like, do you know what is appeals? Like, how to appeal a claim?
Okay, how to appeal it? Okay. Okay.
Also, do you know how to like how to get authorization for any procedure? Do you know that?
Like authorization means the doctor need to get the confirmation from the insurance for the
Hmm.
particular service,
Right.
through mail or through any document.
Hmm. What happens if a member does a procedure without authorization or gets the
Without
procedure
out.
done? So, for example, member goes to a dental doctor and
Okay.
for a dental cleanup or some dental procedure, okay, and then that procedure needs a authorization, but the member is not getting it or the provider is not getting it. Both the parties are not getting any authorization from the insurance and they complete the procedure. What will happen when they submit the claim?
It will be getting denied.
Right. Because very clearly insurance would have like told like certain procedures needs authorization, and
Mm.
either the member or the provider has to call the insurance and make sure that particular procedure is getting authorized before the procedure is done, right, before a certain period
Mm.
of time. So
Yes.
um, if the authorization has not been done, if it is emergency, then fine. Like for example, if it's appendectomy or certain kind of heart procedures, then fine. But if it's going to be something a routine procedure or very generic procedure, then the insurance is going to deny those claims because authorization was not done.
Okay.
Okay, so they may be asking about when you go for, when you say insurance, have knowledge about US healthcare insurance. Some of the topics that you have to learn is like what is a claim and what are the different forms of submitting a claim. So, how to submit an electronic claim, how to submit a paper claim, how the insurance are processing the electronic claims, or how the insurance is processing paper claims. So, there are two types. Like one, the provider can submit or the member can submit through member portal electronically. They will have the website, they'll have the login access and they can submit it, or they can
Okay.
do it through paper. They can fax
Yeah.
the
Okay.
documents or they can mail whatever it is. So that's like two different process. So if it's through member portal, right, then like a data is being stored into the database, and then we are going to have the case manager is going to have some kind of I mean, the system will automatically will do once you submit the claim. The system will automatically do some mandatory checks. For example, checking if the member ID is valid, checking the date of
Okay.
birth, whether that member is already with the database, or if it's going to um, like few mandatory checks it will do. And an ICD code, 9cm code needs to be there, CPT code needs to be there, like few checks are there. So they're going to submit, and then what happens is it is stored into the database. And then after that, it goes through a queue where the case manager or the claims processing team or auditing team, whatever team, it goes through their queue and they review the case manually one by one. But in the system,
Okay.
right, everything is already there in the database, like all the information is already there. But any claim will be like already manually reviewed and then it will be approved or denied accordingly.
Yes.
So some kind of automation
I,
will be there.
Ma'am, I'm having one doubt here.
Mhm.
Who is the case manager?
Like someone who approves or denies the claim. Like from insurance, right, we'll have their insurance people who is going to like view
Okay.
all the claims, and they can
Okay.
approve or
He will
deny.
confirm, he will be approving the whether the claim is valid or not.
Right.
Okay.
So the system will do some mandatory checks. For example, member ID, group IDs, or first name, last name, date of birth, and also ICD 10cm code is there or not. Like that, the system will do a few mandatory checks. But once the document is loaded into the database and it's going through the queue, the claims
Okay.
auditor or this case manager, right, when they log in, right, their queue will have a lot of claims. Okay, so when they open the claim one by one, though it is already some details are already is there in the database, they have to manually review it. Anyway, manual intervention is needed.
Yes.
Yeah, it will be there and they'll process.
Okay.
So when they say if it is through electronic portal, like even if they submit through online, it goes through the queue and then people are going to review it. And they may also have claims that were like appeals. So there's a different department called appeals. So for example, like a claim is denied, okay, and then a member gets a mail stating that this particular claim is denied, please reprocess. Or they may say that we have only 50% coverage because it is out of network or whatever. So the member can actually appeal that particular claim. So what will happen is member needs to do it through member portal, or they can do it through paper or fax. So they'll submit an appeal document and why they're appealing, what's the reason for appeal and all that. So that those
Okay.
documents along with this particular claim number needs to be sent to the appeals team. And appeals team also, a few validations will happen automatically and that will go to the queue. Again, this case manager for appeals, that is like a quite long process, because if you go through appeal queue, right, it is not like as fast as claims. So if you submit through claims, it's different. But if it's going through appeals, then they have to thoroughly check before they because the member can sue actually, right? So they have that appeals. Once it goes through appeals, it takes about like 30 days or 60 days depending upon the insurance, and then they have to be like whether some part of the amount can be covered or not, so they will decision. So usually appeals team is different from claims processing team.
Okay.
Also, authorization as team is different. So there are multiple teams inside the health insurance. For example, just for authorization, there will be an application. So the member or the provider, they can either call or they can submit through a member portal, or they can fax the documents for authorization, and then making sure that they get approval for that any procedure before the provider does the procedure, right? So a member or a provider, so even from doctor's office they can submit the authorization request, or you yourself can submit it. But some procedures only doctors can submit, and for like but for few procedures even the member can submit the authorization request.
Cool.
Yeah. So when you say so, for the feedback is like Lavanya, the problem is like you don't have any IT experience, and so but you have that because of the I think the training you have done, you are aware of all the sprint and all that. Even with healthcare, right? The basic terminologies you are aware, but
Yes.
what they're going to like TCS or CTS or any IT company, what is their expectation? What they expect is like you have to give them a project, a completely like an IT project from basic, like how did you gather requirements? You have to explain the process. It could be a claims processing project, or it could be authorization project, it could be something like appeals project, or it can be any project, enrollment project, or if it's through like sending the files to external vendors through EDI 837, enrollment files, 834 files. That like for example, there is a different external vendor, they are sending some files to your insurance and you're sending some kind of files to the vendors, like that external transaction through SFTP setup, like how did you do? So some kind of like SQL knowledge, those are the basic expectations for an IT interview. So you can say that I have knowledge about US healthcare, but they're not going to hire you just with the knowledge. So their expectation is you need to know, you need to tell them an automation project, like how you got an IT project, how you made sure those like user stories are created, and how did you do end-to-end testing. But you need to tell exactly what project. If it's going to be a claims project, you're going to tell that everything about claims processing. If you worked from member portal, you're going to say that what are the different options in the member portal, how does the client want that particular member portal to be set up, and how did you validate login, how do you validate registration, and how did you make sure that members are getting registered, and then member portal team stores everything into the database. And if they're submitting the claims to the member portal, what are the different checks that we are going to do it from front end, and how the data is getting stored in the database. And if we are going to do UAT testing as a BA, like how did you use SQL and get the data? So how did you do you have this SQL experience? So do you know how to query a database? This is all like the questions that an IT team is going to ask you. Okay. So from I mean, like sprint, all that agile is